So in today's video, I'm going to show you a super easy way of painting these kind of two-tone watercolor flowers. As usual, I'll list the brushes I'm using for this in the description below. And as you can see, I've already got the color palette and the sketch placed in here, and you can download those for free in the description. And this time I promise I'll remember to put those links in. I've just set them both to multiply, and the sketch is really simple. You could definitely recreate this yourself if you wanted to. But I'm just going to lower the opacity of it and set it so I can barely see it. I think it may not even show up on the camera. There we go. Then to start painting, I'm just going to select a blank layer down here. And I'm going to paint basically all the flowers at the same time, kind of like an assembly line. And I'll start with this one. So for the brush, I'm going to use the smooth dry round. And I want to grab the first color here on our color palette. And I'm going to do all the petals just stroke based. It's pretty simple. I'm just going to press very lightly, and then harder, and then lightly again to taper it off. And I'll do this for all the flowers. And the reason they're all spread out like this is because later on I'm going to add the leaves. So I just wanted to make sure there was enough space for those. And at this point, with all the petals laid out like this, I can switch off the sketch. And I'm going to grab my second color here, and I'll change my brush to the fine liner pen. And I'm going to go through this time at a very small size and just add a bunch of lines and dots kind of at the center. It's okay to be kind of messy with this because we're going to blur it later. Now for the blurring part, I don't want to lose the shape of the flower. I just want to blur the colors. So a trick to do that is to turn on alpha lock. So everything so far is on this one layer. So I'll just tap on it and then enable alpha lock. Now I can go to Gaussian blur and just soften everything. And you can see it softens the colors but doesn't ruin our shape. And I'll soften it just a little bit like this. And I want it to be a little bit more blended and more softer in different areas. So to do it now, I'm just going to blend it manually using a water blender. And I'll just go in there kind of randomly and pull out some of this yellow tone. And after that, I'm going to add some line details, but I won't do it to every flower petal. It'll be a little bit random. And those are going to be this sort of magenta pink tone. For the brush, I'm going to switch to the background glazing brush. And we're still in alpha lock. See, alpha lock is still enabled, and we're still on this same flower layer. And I'm just going to draw this kind of randomly and very lightly back and forth on a handful of these petals. And these line details are pretty subtle, but I think they add just the right amount of detail to the petals. Next, I'm going to move on and add the center details. And for that, I'm going to use this darker kind of magenta tone. I'll do these on a separate layer above what we've painted so far. And for the brush, I'm going to use the annoying pen, just because it's kind of annoying. And at a small size, I'll just go in there and kind of tap around and add maybe 6 or 7 dots in the middle. Now at this point, the flowers are finished. So I'm going to merge the 2 layers I did those on just together onto one. And alpha lock is still enabled, and you can tell because there's this kind of checkerboard pattern. So I'll turn that off. Then for the leaves, I'll make a blank layer above the flowers. And I'm going to use this blue tone for the leaf color. And the reason I'm using blue and not green is because originally I did the leaves in green, and then I just messed with the hue and saturation. And eventually I stumbled on this blue color that just looked really nice. Now for the brush, I could use the quick leaf brush, but I'm going to use the rough quill instead because there's kind of a trick I want to show you. So if I use this brush at around maybe 8 or 9%, first I'll use it very lightly to draw a kind of a stem. Then I'll kind of start off a leaf, but I'm going to paint it 1/2 at a time. So I'll use a very light pressure, and then I'll press harder, go to a point, and then kind of chase it back down the other side. After that, I'll lift off the brush, and I'll scribble a little bit at the tip and the base of the leaf. And I think I'll add another one on this one as well. There we go. Now, I want these leaves to be behind the flowers, and I think the best way to do that is to just erase through the leaf. So I'll grab the eraser brush, just set to the fine liner pen because it's a little bit rough. And first I'll just erase just about where I think the petal is. And then I think it's really critical, but also go in there and then round over all these kind of loose edges. Now, the reason I round the edges is because when you paint traditional watercolor on paper, obviously you can't erase it. So you just sort of have to paint and then kind of anticipate the gap and then fill it in on the other side. And the side effect of painting this way is often the edges here end up a little bit rounded. So this makes it look a little bit more like traditional watercolor. Next, I'll just continue on and use the same process to add some stems and leaves to each flower. And there we go. I think these leaves look pretty good. So after I'm finished with that, I'll just merge them together with the flowers. And at this point, the flowers are finished. But what I want to do is create a sort of random arrangement, just filling the whole page. But right now, all the flowers are together onto one layer. And I think it's easier to rearrange everything if I separate them. So to do that, I'll grab the freehand selection tool, and I'll just select one flower at a time. Then I'll swipe down with 3 fingers. It'll bring up this menu, then I'll do cut and paste. And basically it removes the flower from the original layer and then pastes it on a separate layer. So to continue, I'll reselect the original layer and just repeat this process. And once the flowers are all separated like this, I can just go through with the arrow tool and just create a few duplicates of them and position them just enough to fill the whole page. And once they're sort of roughly filled out like this, you can merge everything together onto one layer and then make fine adjustments just using the freehand selection tool and then the arrow tool to kind of nudge them a little bit. And just like that, this simple floral pattern is finished. Now, as you probably noticed, today's video is a little bit shorter than usual. It's just because I'm really short on time this week and I only had a couple hours to paint, but I hope this is enough of a project to get you inspired. As always, if you think I've earned it, please give this video a like, and here are 2 more watercolor flower tutorials I think you'll love to watch next.